Howdy, welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at something a little different this time. This is a Scavengers Foundry Jedi Killer 16-01. I don't know how his numbers work, but there you go. Also, this is Ryan, his shirt that he gave me along with this to install for his customer. I got to say, Ryan has been a friend for a while, and this is the first hilt that I've got to install from him. He hit me up a long time ago when he was first starting to build things, just because I had some clamp cards available, and I think he used them on a couple installs, but has come a long way, and I've admired it from afar. So getting to actually install it was pretty interesting, because he is very conscientious. You can tell this is, I believe, almost, like 99% machined in-house, even with all these greeblies that you can see on here. So obviously, you've got some brass parts that, you didn't machine. Those are just like heat set inserts and things like that. But like the little radiator fins, I know that he has those done by Send Cut Send. But like, I'm not real sure about these guys, but I imagine he's either had these manufactured based on some drawings, or literally chucked it up in a lathe and a mill and did all that stuff. But the nice thing about this hilt, other than the overall aesthetic, is that he kind of made it easy for me to install. For instance, like he provided these greeblies with these dome tactile buttons, and he already glued in the buttons for me. So all I had to do was wire them. So yeah, let us hop down to the table to talk a little bit more about what went on with this install, and we'll go over the chassis design, we'll show off some blade styles, and then we'll hop back out. I'll show off a couple presets that I've programmed into this, and then we'll call it a day. So let's do that now. Okie doke. So as the card says, this is a Jedi Killer. I don't have it here in front of me, but one of the other nice things, like I said, very conscientious build. This came with a hard shell plastic, like a, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a carrying case. I'm forgetting the brand that makes popular ones, but basically like a big carrying case with foam padding, a bunch of stickers, and then a bunch of spare fasteners. All of the tooling required to access this. Thankfully, right now, the only one you will need is your blade retentions. So I'm going to use mine because I wanted to leave all of that in the case that he provided. But there's a bunch of baggies with a bunch of different hex keys for all of the different things. Now, to the user, you won't need those hex keys to get access to like this greeblie panel to do anything, because it's all done for you. But basically, Ryan provided all of the tools in addition to some additional fasteners just in case something happens, or I think even a couple of these, and just in case you want a different look. I don't remember, but it was basically ready for me to install right out of the gate. Like I said, he already glued in these dome tactile switches. So all I had to do was wire them, and then all I had to do was feed my wires through this crystal chamber, and then design a holder, and then design the chassis. So this was on, but it has a 5-minute timeout. So to wake it up, just hit the power button. Ryan also provided the Scavengers Legacy font package from Jedi, as well as Sonic Distortion, Soul Cleaver, and then the remainder of fonts that I've programmed as presets either came like when I bought my Proffie boards. So those are there, but they're not programmed as presets. There are a few that are programmed, some common canon ones in addition to some non-canon ones. But the first 7 fonts are provided by Ryan himself, that were developed by, like I said, Jedi. And Jedi comes with blade style. So super cool, really intricate, like preons and wacky sounds and just very unique stuff. So like I said, that was provided. So overall, though, just if you take a look at all of the weathering that he's done, I know he does a pass of like sanding and then filling and then sanding back with like, what do you call this? I think he uses surf-in chemicals. I've got some of those as well to color, or obviously aluminum black, and then pull it back. But yeah, just a lot of cool things. So like I said, your retention screw is right here. There is an additional hole for another optional set screw. So if you feel like you need balanced grip on your blade, you'll find another set screw in the baggie, and then you can pinch it at 180 degrees. I find that 1 is plenty. This is a 1-inch diameter emitter, so it comes with a blade plug, and you can sort of see that I've subbladed the emitter like I do with some of my higher end clients. I don't think the client asked for it, I just did it just in case, because it doesn't take that much extra effort. So this is a Shtok V4 NPXL, subbladed into inner and outer rings. And if you can see that, that's kind of green and blue. But yeah, we've got our blade plug with a little bit of plastic to offset it from the pins. And then we've got a PCB, so a single 50/50 Neopixel above and below the crystal, so that it's plenty bright. This is a very thin quartz point, so I wanted to make sure it was very visible from outside the hilt. And when you look at the greeblie panels, again, these buttons are 180 degrees from each other. So the one with the two brass kind of, I don't know what you'd call those, like faux buttons, this is your main. And then the side that has like these baffling tubes, that's your aux. So again, it's real easy to operate because you can just hold the saber like that. And then everything else just comes from the grip at the lower end section of this thin neck area. There is a threading in here. I've tried to crank down on it so it's not commonly, like when you go to unscrew this, that it won't undo, but just keep in mind that the grip is the only thing that unscrews. So when you go to grab the saber, definitely hold it from here. And another nice thing that Ryan provided for me is a bunch of tiny set screws to retain the chassis in. And then you'll not notice it, but he's also provided some hidden set screws all over for connectors. So very conscientious builder for an installer like myself. So this is my resin greeblie chassis that I did to kind of match and then also provide some cool blinkies and stuff. This is a take on a version of this type of chassis that I did for David of the Saber Museum. So you'll recognize this Shtok ring here, and then the greeblie. This was actually something I picked up from Tim at Tirfon Orbital. He used as a small ring on the side. He doesn't really do it anymore, but a long time ago he did that. So this is retained from that Saber design, or this chassis design for David's Saber. But one of the things I modified was, instead of having this array of pixels here, I made it into just a vented strip. So it's just 10 pixels there. If I didn't mention, that's a Shtok Medium ring with 16 pixels. So, you know, that'll do different things in the on and off state. And then on this side, we have an Edison filament in red. We have a 28 millimeter KR bass speaker that I sealed in. So it's got good resonance, and it, you can see where it lines up with the opening. So the entirety of this vented pommel is our resonance chamber. So it sounds really good. And then easy access to the kill switch. So if you just were unscrewing the grip to turn it on and off, you only have to undo it about a ½ inch. And then if we take the battery out, this is an 18650. I just used a KR battery wrap because it matched the aesthetic. And then I put Ryan's logo, or a version of the logo, down in the tray. So positives clearly indicated, as always. Spring side is your negative. So just pop that in there and then hit the kill switch. And you get your boot sound, and you can hear how loud it is already. So let's just click through. Again, this side with our baffled greeblie panel is our aux button. So you can hear the Scavenger's Legacy font announcement. These are the main blade styles directly from J. DeLorean, but all of the accent styles are mine, which use FET 263's, options to save space. So the config is on the SD card. There's about 17 presets programmed currently. 7 of those are Ryan's fonts that he provided with me directly. But yeah, Proffie V3, and like I said, configs on the SD card. This will take a 90-degree cable if you decide to do any programming in the future. and then tweezers can pull out the SD card. It is friction fit, so if you don't have a 90-degree cable and you start to lift this over time, you could wear out that friction fit. So I highly suggest getting just the right data cable. But you can see the ring accent has changed now, and then that accent, and then if we hit our power, let's do this real quick. I'm gonna do it muted. So a double tap on power starts up muted. So we can see we've got a long pre-on. Here, I'll turn this off for just a second. So I like to mix up colors because there's so many accents. If everything was just one color, it would kind of get boring. But I did match the crystal with a color, at least, with the main blade for the most part. There might be a few exceptions. But yeah, everything is generally reactive. So if we hit aux for blaster blocks, you can see things react with like white, bright white. Or if we clash the saber, you can see. And then also lightning blocks and melts and drags and stuff like that. So you can see that's changed. And then if we turn it off, we go to a different accent. So yeah. And then if we switch fonts again.
Scavengers Legacy.
Okay. So there are 3 different versions that were provided for both the Scavengers Legacy and Sonic Distortion fonts. So I put all of the 3 of those for each of those 2 on here because they have their own blade styles. And I figured the sounds are probably timing dependent on some of those. So might as well just make it work for what Jay DeLorean designed. So those are all on here. Yeah. So let's do this. I'll show off this paint job a little bit more. You can see what I like to do on my Edison filament is just switch it up. So every now and then it's a different. So you saw that one was a sequence. This is now a pulse. And then when it turns on, it goes a little bit brighter, and then it's subtle, but it does also react to clashes in terms of full brightness for that, because it's basically just a single color LED. And if you can't hear that, it's saying Sonic Distortion. So yeah. All right, so I'm gonna put the grip on and we'll put a blade in it and we'll show off a couple things to go with that. Again, this takes a 1-inch diameter Neopixel blade. I've designed it for a 36-inch blade length or 132 pixels. I'm gonna go ahead and use my 1-inch. I normally demo it with a KR strip, a quantum strip in a 7/8. But because I don't want to risk the adapter not connecting, when I tested this earlier, my blade almost didn't need the set screw to be engaged. So, but it's still the same. Like I said, it's 36. It'll match most things. If you have a shorter blade, you can jump into edit mode. I'll have a printout that describes it, but you can get into edit settings, edit blade length, and you can reduce it to whatever your main blade length is. And you can follow the instructions on that. But basically I set it up for what I thought would be the maximum length. And then you can edit it from there. If you don't edit it, it's no big deal. You just may or may not see tip effects, for instance, like drag or stab effects. But everything else will look the exact same. So let's go back to the beginning. So this is Scavenger's Legacy. Like I said, we can see we've got our crystal lighting up there, blue to match the blade. I think all of them have preons. So to get the preon to work, you have to press the button. I've provided gesture controls, twist on and thrust on. If you do a gesture control, you'll bypass the preon, and you'll also get into battle mode, which just means that you don't have to hold a button to engage a lockup. But for the most part, if that's not how you like to engage with your saber, you can always just hit power, and then you do have to hold a button. So let's do that so we can see the very cool blade style. And I don't know if it shows up, but it's essentially a bunch of like blue and red stripes. So it comes off magenta looking, but it can be a little bit seizure inducing. And again, like I mentioned, you can see the crystal react to blaster blocks. And then if we hold either aux or power as we clash, we'll engage that lockup. If we do hold power for 2 seconds, we'll get a force effect. I think this one has one. Yeah. Oh, kind of a long one, yeah. But that's why I said I left it exactly as it was programmed, because he does go through all that extra effort to program the sounds to match the animations. So that's why I provided all 3 iterations of those 2 fonts on here. But yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, so I'll do a twist on and we'll bypass the pre-on, and then that way I can show you battle mode real quick. So, no pre-on. So if you lightly tap the saber, you will get regular clashes, but if you clash hard enough, that's when you engage a lockup until you pull out of that position. So. This one has a unique blaster sound. It dips as you blast. Pretty cool. And then force effect. You can hear that hum come back in. If it's not picking up, it's because my lapel mic is very directional.
Scavengers Legacy.
So this is the 3rd iteration. I think this is the most intensive of them. So when the blade is off, you can use power for 2 seconds to start and stop tracks. If you want to do the designated track, so in other words, the one that came with the font, you have to point the saber upright. If you don't, then you'll get into track player mode, which looks to the common folder. And I include kind of a plethora of songs. And so you can get to them through track player mode, but I'll show you the designated one first. So point the hilt straight up, hold for 2 seconds. Hold it again for 2 to turn it off. And then if we aren't pointed up, then we'll do track player. It'll be preceded by a chime, and then it'll immediately start playing the first track in the alphanumerically ordered sequence. So if you rotate to the right, you'll scroll forward through all of those tracks. If you rotate to the left, you'll scroll backwards. And then any button will continue to play that particular track. It does do something different, and again, I'll have a printout that explains it, but you know, one, it'll continue to play, and then it'll play sequentially after that. Another will be, it'll play, and then it'll pick a random track after that. And then there's a couple other ones where if you hold power and twist, or click power and twist, then it does something, and if you click aux and twist, it does something else. I forget all of those things, but let's just demonstrate that real quick. So track player mode, hold not in the upright, but any other position for 2 seconds. There's our chime. So we can hear, these are, whoop, there we go. So let's say I wanted to play this one. I'll hit power. And now I can continue to move the saber around and it won't scroll to another track. And then again, hold for 2 seconds to turn it off. Now again, I provide a bunch of tracks. The reason I do that is so from any preset that you're on, you can always get to every track whatsoever. That way it's just a lot more fun. But again, you can actually turn tracks on and off when the saber or when the blade is on, but you can only start the track when the blade is on, when it's upright. So it will only ever be the designated. But if you start in track player, turn the blade on, and then decide you want to turn the track off, then you have to point it up and then hold for 2 seconds. So let's do that real quick. So I'm going to start and stop a track. Okay, then I'll turn the blade on. And then I'll hold for 2 seconds upright to turn it off. There we go. And now it stopped playing. And you can twist off. So you also have twist on, like I said, or thrust on, which is a forward momentum. So I don't know that these fonts have quotes, but just like Track Player, if you have a font that does have quotes, it's already programmed to play them. When the blade is on, you would just point the blade down and hold power for 2 seconds, just like you were starting and stopping the track, but in the reverse order. And then it'll switch between quote player and force player. But I don't think any of the ones I did have those differences. So I'm just letting you know that the function exists out of the box, but you would need to provide a font that has tracks, a track folder, in order to switch back and forth. So let's. So showing off some tip effects there. And if you can tell, it's still sonic distortion, but it's the different variations of the blade style. And also within the track, there are 3 different folders. Because I think some of the actual font files are timed differently. So Ryan also provided Soul Cleaver. And there's just one of this. There are multiple blade styles, I believe, but only one sound font. So I picked the one that I thought made the most sense. And so, yeah, so we'll just...
Liquid static.
There are a couple more.
Ignition.
I'm a Jedi, like my father before me.
So the remainder are pretty much canon fonts. And like I said, there's 17 that I've programmed, but on the SD card, there's a whole bunch more fonts that either came with the SD card from the supplier that I bought my Proffie board from, or free fonts, or other ones. You will notice that I did provide the Proffie OS voice pack. So on a few of these, if you decided to like test the battery level by holding power and tapping aux.
Enter volume menu.
I'm sorry, that's volume. So this one you can hear is Vader because this is the Vader font.
Maximum volume. Exiting volume menu.
It's hold aux and tap power for battery.
Battery level 86%.
But the default one,
I'm a Jedi.
Ignition.
I'm not quite sure who I chose. It was somebody menacing sounding.
Battery level 87%.
That's Clancy Brown, so this must be Savaggio Press. So the voice packs are there to either, like I said, show you the volume or the battery, or to guide you through the OS voice pack. But like,
Then perhaps she will.
so for instance, this one's going to be a Luke Graflex.
Battery level 88%.
So I've provided Luke.
Lord Vader.
We already heard Vader.
General Kenobi.
Here's Kenobi.
Battery level 87%.
So there you go. So I do that normally anyway on a bunch of my other sabers that I install for people. In other words, all of these voice packs come from Brian Connor. So he made it easy to just drag and drop them into the common, into the folders or into the common folder if that's the only one you want. So that's going to pretty much cut it. Anything I don't cover in this video, like I said, will be on a printout. The Saber, like I said, has plenty of fonts. If you decide to learn how to code, I provide a template file in the config, so you can copy and paste. My config only takes up 78% of the space available. So that should be plenty more to add at least a few more, even if they're complex blade styles, into a new preset, if that's what you're coding. However, the blade styles that I provide also have custom options. So if you don't know how to code, you can use edit mode to duplicate a preset, edit the blade style of that preset to either turn ignition types on or retraction types off or power-ups on and off to make a unique style. You can also switch the blade color. But the ones that came with the fonts from Scavengers Legacy and stuff like that, those don't have those functions. So those are just as they come. But anything else that I've provided, like I said, has a bunch of options already built in. You can turn it on and off from the Saber itself with edit mode. I don't cover edit mode here. It will be on the printout. It'll show you all of the different sub menus that you can get into. But generally speaking, I've ordered the blades. There are 6, obviously, like we said. We've got the main blade, the inner and outer ring of the emitter, the crystal chamber, then the chassis strip, the Shtok ring, and the Edison filament. So generally speaking, if you jump into edit mode, the first blade that you're going to be able to edit will be the main blade. So you generally don't have to go further than that, but you can if you choose to. And again, each of my like accent styles all have like 5 or 6 different on and off states, a few different power-ups. I don't actually take advantage of all like spots because then it's just a super complex blade style. But you know, there's a couple different ways that they can turn on and off to make it very interactive and cool. And most of them rely on the sound file to either deal with timing effects or stuff like that. So anyway, so yeah, that's a Saber. And if we want, we can just come over here. And like I said, we only need to come out the first inch or so to access the kill switch here, and then I'll show the crystal chamber turning off. So everything's off now, and you're good to go. So that is the Scavengers Foundry Jedi Killer 16-01 to the customer. Thanks for your patience on this. To Ryan, thanks for making it super easy. And to everyone else out there watching, thanks for checking it out, even if it's not your Saber. Maybe you learned something. So may the Force be with you.